Welcome back to the Unshakable Habits podcast. I am your host, Stephen Box. And this week, we are really talking about people who feel very overwhelmed. There's just never enough time in the week, no matter how hard you work. And my guest this week, Christine Jewell, is a faith-based executive coach and author of Drop the Armor. Christine has been really giving us insights all week long about how this shows up in our life and the problems it can cause. Specifically on Monday, we talked about how this shows up in your career. And then on Tuesday, we talked about Tuesday, we talked about how this shows up in your career. And Wednesday, we talked about how it shows up in your relationships. Today, we're going to talk about one that I personally know a lot about, is how this shows up when we neglect our health. So, Christine, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So you've given us a lot of really good stuff this week. I'm just curious, so far, is there anything that you've maybe had some time to think about in hindsight from the first couple of episodes here that you maybe want to go back and just highlight or share with anyone? Just like a thought that you say, you know what, I wish I had said this before.
I just want to double tap and triple tap that I do believe overwhelm is always a lack of clarity. So whenever you feel like you're just under this weight, I would challenge you to be really clear of, am I still trying to be the source of everything to everyone? Because when we're trying to carry the burden for everybody else and everything inside of our business, every project, every person, whether you have a team and you're like, you feel responsible for their salaries and their people, like when you start, it happens subtly, but we start thinking we're the source of everything. It's a subtle distortion, but man, the minute you start thinking you're the source of everyone's happiness, you will soon be crucified. I always say, if I'm the answer to everyone's problems all the time, I'm pretty soon going to be the reason for all of their problems, because now they're putting all of that weight on me and in me, and it's very heavy to be carrying that. And we were not designed to operate. There's only one that can carry the weight of everyone and everything. So I just wanted to say that as we go into this last day and we start thinking about, how do I operate? This isn't like some hairy fairy, peace and happiness. It's about, how do I operate lighter so I can fight battles more swiftly, focus on the right things, be more effective, be more present, be more grounded, be more available with a high level of capacity to lead, not from a burnt out, resentful, exhausted place, but a strong, steady spirit of sound mind, right? Not confusion. Because if we're overwhelmed, we're often confused. We're not operating of sound mind.
Yeah. So one thing I want to hop into on this conversation of health is, I hear this a lot, especially from people with a Christian background, is when we talk about health, a lot of times it's looked at from the perception of you're idolizing yourself, or it's vain to try to make yourself healthy.
That is a great thing, and I'm glad that you brought it up. And I'm going to say that I do believe that is born out of a lot of dogmatic Christianity and old religious views that, like, the flesh is bad, right? We're so taught, like, the spirit is good, the flesh is bad, don't be vain, don't be focused on the flesh and all that. And I just want to remind us that God gave Adam and Eve a body. He gave us a body from the beginning. He did not just put us as in the spirit. Otherwise, we would not have this physical body. And then when Jesus leaves, he says, your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. Your body is the temple where the Spirit dwells. And so I think, like, we need to wake up to the fact that God did not create us just spiritual being. He created us holistic, with a mental body, a consciousness, with a physicality, with a spirit and a soul. And I think that a lot of the turmoil a lot of us experience is that we think one part of us is good and another part is bad. And if we like this part too much, then somehow it's bad. Instead of saying, God, bring me back to wholeness. What is it like when I honor my body, my spirit, my mind, and my heart the way that you designed me to honor all of it? Yeah. Because I believe that is sacred design of a holistic, healed human, reintegrated human being. I actually interviewed my pastor on spiritual authority and power, and we shared this exact thing, and I want to just introduce it. Jesus wasn't offended by his physical body.
Yeah.
he had a body, right? He could have come and just been like a walking spirit on earth. But, and I just think that's so important. He was like the perfect integration of the heart, the mind, the body, and the spirit operating on earth as it is in heaven. And I'm like, we have been given the same invitation. Will we honor not only our spirit, which is, yes, we want to honor the spirit, but also our soul, the gifts that he put inside of us, the physical body. And I just think that that whole thing about being a temple is so important. We are a temple. Would you just trash a temple if you walked into one? Would you just start throwing garbage in there and spray painting it? Or would you feed it good food? You put beautiful things in there, right?
Yeah, and I think it comes down to this idea of you don't have to chase after six-pack abs or
Yeah.
anything like that, right? It's about moving your body. It's about using this beautiful gift of motion that God has given us, right? We have this amazing, if you think about our bodies, how amazing they actually are. The
Yes.
ability
They're
to move, function and jump and run, and to think that so many of us not only don't do those things, we look at those things as a burden.
Isn't it interesting too when you study neuroscience and we see what happens to our brain when we actually move and we exercise and we realize this intelligent design of our body is actually miraculously designed to operate so much more optimally when we move, that it puts us into creative states where we have divine strategies and divine solutions and all this stuff. And so I believe that when we dishonor the body, we actually dishonor our ability to create and multiply.
Yeah. One thing I want to point out here, because you've talked a lot this week about the idea of you need to fill your own cup first.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about it a lot, especially when we talked about relationships, but it ties back to work also. If you don't have the energy, if you don't have the mental capacity to show up as your best self at work, then you're going to fall flat, right? To me, health, and when I say health, both physical health and mental health, if you don't make the time for those two things, there is no way that you can possibly perform and show up as your best self.
Yeah. You're basically being like, I'll settle for 10%, God, of what you have because I'm going to operate from mental fog and a bloated gut and more exhaustion. And I think it's like a slap in the face. I do believe that we have a duty to show up and be really taken care of. And I believe it's like anything else. To whom much is given, much is required. We've been given body. You've been given. You didn't do anything to earn your body. You know what I mean? Like that has been gifted to you, just like your talents, just like your abilities. And it's like, how are you stewarding that? Or are you trashing it? I really operate by that belief that if I steward well and I honor the things that God has created for me to carry out the purpose I have in this world, then I'm abundantly blessed, right? Longevity, long life, joy, blessing, like all of that. So I believe like it's a fundamental belief of mine. I have a responsibility to take care of my health, to take care of my energy, to show up with capacity and to model that for the people that I lead.
Yeah.
That was my children and now it's our staff. And that's why even Mark and I in our corporate coaching side of the business, we start all of our live events with a 6 a.m. workout. It's a bit of a shock to people because they're like, oh, we're going boxing at 6 a.m. And we're like, yes, we are. It's a big wake up call for some people that haven't moved their body. But then we ask them during the event, what are your top 3 values? They say usually the same 3: faith, family, and health. But you look at them and they don't look healthy. They haven't had a date night with their wife and God knows how long. And they're still operating from fear. And I'm like, no wonder you feel upside down and inside out. You're compromising your values all day long.
Yeah.
For what?
Yeah. It's crazy because you're right. Like those are the things that most people are going to say. And
Those are the things.
they're in complete contradiction on all 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And
when you're a walking contradiction, you are highly stressed.
Yeah, I was going to say, and so much of that comes from what you've talked about all week, which is all that programming, all those beliefs that you've put in place, all those things that you've put on yourself that make you feel overwhelmed, that's what's causing the problem.
Yeah. Being misaligned is extremely overwhelming. Believing one thing and doing another is extremely overwhelming because now you're out of integrity. You know how hard it is to drive a car when the alignment's off, right? It just is so much more work. And so this is about, what if this was effortless? What if this was way easier? And that's why I started. The very first thing you asked me on that first episode we did was, I introduced the concept of, what if you could be overwhelmed with like flow state and like mental freedom and like ease and overwhelmed with grace. This is what we're talking about. As you start coming into alignment with your values, meaning you're not a walking contradiction, but you're a walking reflection of your values, there's flow.
Yeah.
Right? There's flow in your relationships. There's better flow in your marriage. You get more work done of the right things. The right people start showing up in your life. You start to attract different opportunities. And I know this is a hard one to hear. Am I a walking contradiction? I think that's the question we need to ask ourselves. Where am I a walking contradiction?
Yeah.
Where can I start getting into alignment? And this is, again, to your point, it's not about building six-pack abs, but it's about, look, God created us with all these joints for a reason. If we were not designed to move, we wouldn't have joints. We would just have like straight sticks. Right? I'm always like, I get fascinated by studying the design of things because then I understand the purpose of them. But when you actually look at the human design of our bodies, like, we were designed to run, to jump, to crawl, to move all the time.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
It is. It's very interesting. And what I think I really would want people to realize, and I think you'll agree with this, is when we prioritize our physical health and we prioritize our mental health, what we end up with is a body that functions well, has energy, and a brain that has peace. And when we have energy and peace, that's when we get to show up and do all these wonderful things we really want to do.
Yeah. And I think maybe that might be a reframe for some people, because a lot of times when I ask people, like, what are your values? And they say health, I'm like, yeah, but I don't really think health is that. Because health is it's something that gets you to the thing that you really want. For me, freedom is one of my values. Like, I don't want to be a slave to the world. I don't want to be stuck in a wheelchair where I want to have freedom to go skiing with my grandchildren. I want to have freedom now to go mountain climbing with my son. And I want to have mental freedom, which means I have peace of mind. So for me, because I value freedom so much and I say yes to freedom, then movement is just, that's what gets to happen so that I can experience freedom in my body. I love the way my body feels free when I move. So even though I value health, that's not really the thing that's pulling me. And so I just want to suggest that maybe for some of the listeners, maybe it's not health. Maybe that's not the real value, but maybe it's, I don't know, right? Like clarity or peace of mind, or maybe it's connection with your family because you can do stuff together, right? Figure out what the thing is for you that when you move, it gets you there.
Yeah.
Because health is not very motivating necessarily for people if there's nothing broken.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll just add real quick, because you're talking about 6 a.m. workouts. I am not there for that. I am a night owl by nature. So for my fellow night owls out there, I know y'all like to work out in the evening and at night like I do, but I would encourage, even if it's just 5 minutes of stretching or something, get some movement to start your day. It will absolutely transform your entire day, just even if it's 5 minutes. And then you can go do your regular workout at the end of the day, but just get 5 minutes first thing in the morning and you will be amazed how much better you feel.
Yes. And one of my favorite morning routines, and I call it habit stacking. I'm sure you guys have talked about that before. I used to own a holistic health and performance studio. I just have a rebounder. I have a little trampoline, and I'm doing some breath work and I'm pumping my arms, and I have that thing outside in the sunshine. So now I've got oxygen, I've got sunshine, I've got breath work. I got some music playing, I chug a liter of water. And all of a sudden, like 5 minutes, to your point, you could just stack and you just get this huge infusion of energy. And again, if your value is energy, like I want to be energized, you don't need an hour workout. You can emulate the feeling. And then you can do a recalibration at lunchtime. Maybe that's like I do some grounding in the grass, and then maybe I do some squats or some weights at the end of the day. But that's also why I've reframed like the idea of working out to activations. because I'm always turning something on or I'm letting go of stuff. Sometimes it's like I do a full day of coaching or a full day of calls. It's heavy, like you're dense and you're sitting, and I just need to go like shake it off. So I do a lot of like shaking. That's an awesome nervous system recalibration. I'm literally like just shaking off all the stuff that you take on consciously or unconsciously.
I love it. We could honestly go on for days and days. So for anyone who wants to learn more or hear more about some of the things that you do, what's going to be the best way for them to find you?
So first of all, I want to gift all of your listeners with the free chapter of my book. The book is called Drop the Armor. It is available on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Books A Million, all that. But if you go to thechristinejewell.com/drop it, we're going to send you the first chapter. There's also a warrior love letter, which I believe is the letter for all the warriors at heart out there, the time that you're in. So I would encourage you to just get in there. That gets you into my world. Also, you can tune into our podcast, the Breaking Chains podcast, which is all about breaking free from the chains of your past, the things that are weighing you down, so that you can step into the extraordinary life that God has predestined for you.
Awesome. I love it. And I will also have the link in the show notes for that. So if anybody wants to get that, if you're driving or anything, please don't crash your car. It will be there for you later. You can go check it out. Christine, thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom and your insights with us this week. Is there any final words that you would like to leave people with?
I just think that we need to remember all the time a couple things. If you follow me, if we choose, we're always choosing every day, every moment. We are choosing who we will serve. And we're either choosing to serve the one that says, my burden is light, my yoke is easy, my burden is light, or we're choosing to follow the one that says, come, I got all the shiny things to promise you, but it's going to feel heavy and stressful and exhausting. And it's just a moment by moment decision. When you start feeling heavy, remember, you can be overwhelmed by all the things of the world, or you can be overwhelmed by the things that you're grateful for, the things that you're excited about, the things that God is calling you into. And so I just want to invite you all to choose your overwhelm and choose your master. And because we're always serving something. So you're going to serve the one that is life-giving, or you're going to serve the one that takes life away.
I love it. And with that, I will just remind everyone that while none of us are born unshakable, we can all become unshakable, because being unshakable is a choice.